Okay, Dan, why should people get started in social housing? Why social housing? Why not HMO, service accommodation?
Yeah, for me, it's purely the fact that it's less operations, and it gives you a lot of different flexibility as well when it comes to once you've got a provider on board. Straight away getting attacked by spiders and flies.
Try not to laugh. Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. There's just, it opens up so many different avenues. Once you've got a provider on board, there's obviously the tenant find, there's sourcing to the provider, there's management is a lot easier as well, because you're not like you wouldn't set up like a traditional letting agent. You get in a family and stuff like that. You've got something of a lot higher value to offer with a provider. You're offering landlords that are petrified of the renters reform coming in, especially if they're inexperienced or they're accidental landlords. They're worried about the renters reform coming in, managing tenants and all the different changes that are coming in. You've got a company that can take on their property for the next 3 to 5 years. They're going to handle internal maintenance, and you've got to manage that tenancy, and there's pretty much no operations again there.
Is it hard to get into? You say it's pretty hands-off in terms of operations. To get to that level though, it's pretty hands-on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's never going to be a way around doing the work. No. Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you can't just open the curtains, open the window one day from a normal life and be like, I have a social housing business.
Exactly that. No, there's no way. And it's almost harder in a way to the other strategies, because there's two sides of it. It's not just finding the property, it's finding the provider first as well. A lot of things in life, the harder things have better rewards. So once you've done the runaround, you've got the provider on board, or you've got like I say to the mentees when they join, the first month you need to spend building a client list, get as many providers on board as you possibly can, and then you can go out into the marketplace. Then when you come across a property, it's like, okay, well, it's not suitable for this one, what about these guys? If they don't want it, what about these guys? Like now we've got a community chat with all of our providers in, so we have to do a walkthrough video, and then we ping it in there, and we just say whoever's interested, message us privately, and then we just get messages from the providers that want to come and take a look. Certain properties won't suit them.
That also creates scarcity, doesn't it? Because other providers in that group will be like, has someone already messaged? We've got to act fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
So they're on it.
Another question we had from a guy who left a comment on my YouTube channel called Kieran. He said, why doesn't landlords just go and find the providers themselves?
Well, some of them, though, they don't even know that this is a thing. Like when we've spoken to other landlords about like rent to HMO or rent to rent in general, obviously it's a bit of a buzzword, rent to rent. They just don't understand what a company let is. And they might have experienced like seasoned old school landlords that I've spoken to, and they don't even know what it is. Yeah. It's shocking. You're like,
it's
how
crazy.
How have you built such a large portfolio and you don't know about this option? And you're dealing with tenancies and everything like that.
One of the landlords I work with, multi-millionaire, many properties. You've met him.
Yeah.
And he'd never been approached by a company let, and he didn't know what a company let was.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
thought that's crazy.
Kieran's got a good point. Like the landlord could go out and find a provider, but then he's also got worrying about a property that he's got empty or coming available. So he's trying to find a tenant for that.
And run his normal life.
And run his normal life, yeah. So has he got time to go out and find the providers and build up a client list like us? Probably not, no. So if you can come to him and say, Mr. Landlord, I'm really interested in your property. I've got a number of people that would be interested in taking it on, then you're solving a problem.
On the flip side, why don't providers go and find landlords? Why use someone like you?
Yeah, so providers will be trying to actively look for properties the majority of the time, but they're experts in delivering care and the service that they provide is that they are running a whole business in themselves. So they've got the property procurement side of things, and then they've also got managing their staff, managing their service users. They've got the CQC worrying about inspections coming in and things like that. There's so many different things to their business. Obviously, like you find out when you go into rent to rent, it's more than just making calls.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of different things that go on. The same for the providers. They're not experts in finding properties, they're experts in care. So this is when we can come in and say, well, don't worry about finding the property. I can find that for you, and then we can bring you what are your standards, what is it you need, what are your requirements, where do you want to grow into? We can go out there and find you that property.
Why is there a need for a social housing provider to require more houses? Why do they need more houses? Why not just stay with the houses they've got, dealing with the people that need care that they've got? Have they got more people coming in?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, they are business owners as well, right? Everyone starts a business to make money.
Yeah.
They want to expand and grow, you know, just like what we want to do.
Yeah.
We want to grow our businesses. We want to make more money, whatever our goals are. So that's why they want to take on more. So they may be well established. They may have, you know, tens of properties, or maybe they've just got a handful and they're looking to expand. So I like to work with the ones that are up and coming, that have got a good track record already. They've been going, you know, at least a couple of years, and maybe they got 5 to 10 properties, and they are looking to expand, and they've got a good track record. I like to go and have a look at their properties as well to inspect to see how they are running their properties, if they're a good provider that I want to partner with.
That leads quite nicely on to another question we had was, do we run referencing on the social housing providers?
Yeah, so absolutely, yeah. First port of call is to just go on to companies' houses, take a look at their books straight away, ask how many properties they've got, how long have they been going for. The smaller ones, what I do is, say if they've only been going like 3 to 5 years, a lot of the time I'll ask for a personal guarantor as well. So I get it in the tenancy will obviously, the lease will obviously be in the provider's company name, but then I get the director to be a personal guarantor on the contract as well. So they're tied in. So and you can credit check that person obviously as well, like you would reference a normal tenant.
Yeah, do you use the same software?
Yeah, you can use the same software, yeah, or there's loads of different platforms.
So which is the most common software you use just for these guys?
So letting ref is the one that I continue to use because obviously
it's very clear and easy to use.
Yeah, it's super simple.
The tenant does all the work. You just press a couple of buttons.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice and easy to do a reference on there. But you can get, there's other platforms like Vouch and things like that you can use that, are a bit more robust and, higher in the industry for referencing.
Let's just say someone started a mentorship. What would be their first thing for the first week? They've got a compliant business set up, website, PRS, ICO, etc. What would be their first task we give them?
Go and find providers. Watch the action course where I tell you the types of providers that you need to be going after, the ones that pay the exempt rents, the better rates, These are the ones where we can do back-to-back leases on because there's margin in there, they'll pay above the market value. But then I did post the other day stating that even if you get a provider and they can pay normal market value, they're still like a very good asset to have because, like I said, when it comes to management, maybe you can't do a back-to-back lease.
Yeah.
Tenant find, exactly. Like it's so easy to make fees and get management from a landlord because they don't necessarily want to put a residential tenant in that's maybe going to be there for 6 months to a year. There's not even going to be the guarantee of a fixed period anymore. It's going to be periodic tenancies. So a tenant now can effectively, or when these changes do come in, if they stay the way they're going to stay, is that a tenant can move in on Friday and then on Saturday give you 2 months notice to leave. There's no fixed period. Whereas with a provider or with a company, you'd be like, right, you're looking at 3 to 5 years here. Yes, we may have a break clause, but the break clause at absolute minimum is going to be a year. So it's like you've got security for that period of time. So it's like, why wouldn't you do that?
If someone's wanting to start this, how much do they need to have? Can you start with no money, aside from training, to start a social housing business? Because you're not taking on the properties yourself, are you? It's a bit different.
Yeah, exactly. So you can be like a transfer of money and you are purely a middleman. Like you get the holding deposit from the provider and then you pass it on to the landlord. Same as the rent, you get the rent from the provider, like first month's rent up front and then onto the landlord. You would always feel a bit more comfortable if you had some money there. You had a bit of a buffer. So say like the provider comes around, they check out the property, they're like, oh, we could do with the carpet being done, or that door needs fixing, we need a few smarten up the bathroom a little bit, could you do painting?
So what are we saying, up to £2,000?
Yeah, that would be more than enough.
Yeah,
because you can barter with the provider for them to do some of the works as well. It's like we've got one going on at the moment, there's lights, it's like a house, so there's lampshades and stuff like that, but the people they're going to be putting in there are like autistic, so they might see that and grab that. Was the first thing they said, we need to change these lights, and then they were like, this needs doing, that needs doing. It's like, well, okay, well, you do this and that, we'll paint the bedrooms for you and we'll change the lights, but you do this and that, and then it's like you come to some negotiation and then you can all move forward. So yeah, if you've got a little bit of money there, you always feel a bit more confident that you can get the deal over the line. But saying that, I've done deals with no money down whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because the property was ready to go and it was just a transfer of that money.
Nice.
I didn't even have to put a deposit down with the landlord because the deposit I put down with the landlord was what I got from the provider. Minus obviously because there's a bit more on the provider side because they're paying me. So it's, you don't need the money, but I would say if you've got a bit of money there, it can't hurt.
We've got a question from Joanna. If you have zero experience in property and this is what the route you want to go down, can you start with no experience?
Yeah, I started with no experience. I started with rent to HMO, but we've got mentees that join with no experience all the time. You learn, aren't you? You're learning something new. So you're learning to create a business, but then you learn about property along the way. And I think you have to show a real interest, right? There'll be things that are mentioned in the course, this certain type of provider provides care for this. We're like, all right, well, go on Google, have a look at where do they get their referrals from, or speak to the provider. You have to show actual general interest. You're trying to learn as you go. You can't just take, there is everything that you need to know to get started in the course and more detail.
You have to implement.
You have to implement it to learn, because you don't even know what you don't know until you start asking questions. And that doesn't have to just directly be to us, but to the providers as well, because we're not going to know all the providers you come across. We're not going to know all the landlord questions. I think it was Andy the other day. He asked me. He had a question from a letting agent about would the rent get paid to the letting agent, and then the letting agent would pay Andy. And I was like, I've never come across that question in my life before.
Yeah.
Like, how does that even make sense? But there'll be things that you discover along the way.
Yeah.
You know, and then you build your knowledge. Like a certain area, like my area is more supported living and children's care. I don't really deal with like homeless or asylum seekers and ex-cons. I've sourced a few tenant finds for these sort of tenant like profiles, but mainly it's supported living. So I know that like a supported living provider is going to need the backing from the local commissioner in my area. So any properties that come across, I'll send it out to the commissioner. Do you think do you have demand for service users in this area? Would you give this backing? Because otherwise there's no point in me getting the provider out. So there's all these different things, and you learn about the property types they need, their requirements and stuff like that. And you only get that from having a conversation with that person and showing genuine interest in their business.
Do you think people are afraid to be a beginner? Like, especially, you know, at our age, you've gone through school, everyone's following the traditional route, go to uni, go to, you know, whatever, get a job, learn that job, become good at it, get promoted because you've been good, get promoted again because you've been good. But to go back to absolute zero and be a student again in a new niche, picking up the phone and not having a clue how to answer it, do you think people are afraid to look stupid?
100%. I think we all are, and I think the blessing is when starting something completely new is that you have the right to not know anything, and that is such a weight off. That is probably one of the best things, because when you're experienced, you feel like you should know all the answers. Like, I've been doing this for years now, like I should know the answer to this, or somebody asked me a question, I'm like, I don't actually know that. I have to go and research, but I will go and research. I know how to figure things out.
It's almost nice to be like, I have no clue. And I say it to some of the students. I said, if you get a stupid question from an agent, just tell them you're brand new, but say it with conviction. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. And then just let them carry on. And you're like, you're new. You've just told them you're brand new. How long have you been trading? No, not long. A few weeks. I'm brand new. But then go and learn. I think it is a blessing that you don't realise until later on in your journey. But that's something that I've recently, I was speaking to you about, like my mindset lately, and like things I'm trying to implement, and like going back to that book, Go for No, which you told me about when I very first joined, right? It just applies to everything. So it's such a helpful tool for your mindset, thinking about failing forward. And like, you know, it's really easy to say that and it's almost corny, but it's so true. It's so true. Children are the perfect example. They'll ask and you'll be like, no, no. And they'll ask and ask. They will not give up. And then we do give in. Exactly. And then they're like, oh, that worked. But we drill that out of them. And that's actually a really good trait to lose. I encourage my son to, you know, always ask, always poke mummy. If you want something, keep asking.
So she loves you for that.
She doesn't know about it. Just keep asking. You'll get it.
100%. And I think getting over that and reframing that mindset around, like they say, there's different levels of going for no, isn't there? There's like, you won't do it. There's the willingness to get a no. So you're like, okay, like I don't mind accepting a few no's, like that's fine. But then that never lasts for a long period of time. And then there's the wantingness to get no's.
100%
like,
it's the wantingness. Basically, you know, No Fool. He's been on the program for I think a year. And it was 6-7 months in. And I basically said to him on the Zoom call, I was like, how are you measuring your success? Like, how long are you going to continue with like just floating? I said, right, this is what I want you to do, right? Print off 100 boxes, and that is your 100 no's. And if you get to box 100 and you still haven't got a deal, I'll give the mentorship money back. And now he's got 15 rent to SA management properties. 15 he's up to. 15. All that work that's gone in, and then it's the delayed gratification. It's crazy. It just all comes at once then. I need to meet up with No Fool, because I'm so proud of him. It's like just floating, no like roadmap for yourself. It's like, I'm gonna do 300 phone calls. You know, and if it doesn't work, then I'd never say I'd quit. I'd just find another way. But by those 300 phone calls, you would have learnt so freaking much. You'd be a different person. You'd be a pro on the phone. You would have got this close many times that you're like, okay, it is a numbers game. 100%. But because people don't measure their success, it's like, oh, you know, it's another week. Materialize it. Have 300 boxes. Right, there's my journey. Here's the success end. I'm a third way through. I did that. I was like, 3 months. I'm going to hit it very hard for 3 months. Mine was time, not boxes. But the boxes, it's nice for them to like cross it off.
100%. And you've got to measure that, you know, time can pass, but the actual input that you're putting into something, that's definitely measurable, isn't it? And that's within your control. So it's such a mindset shift though. It really is. You've got to put in the work.
Yeah.
You've got to do it. It surprises me when a month's gone past on the mentorship and they're like, and you know, people are saying like, you know, I've done, you know, 50 calls or something like that, or 50 outreaches. It's like, that should have been your first week.
Yeah, that's a week's worth.
That's a week's worth of work.
Yeah, I always
not even a week really.
I always break it down. So how long do you think those phone calls last? Okay, let's put that per day.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 1.5 phone calls per day.
Yeah.
And you want £1,000 pay rise for making 1.5 phone calls.
Yeah, mate. I think it's just since I've started doing more coaching and stuff like that as well, it's just you get to see so many different people's mindsets. Don't you?
Yeah.
I've started to really reflect on my own mindset recently, like with coaching people and telling them what to do. I'm like, I need to follow through with my own word a lot more with myself as well. I put in plans to do things at certain times, and yeah, I'm fairly consistent, like with the gym and eating and all that sort of, and like making the outreach in the business and stuff like that. But I get a lot of shiny object syndrome. I've realised, like, the better you start to do, the more sort of opportunities come in, and then you start to get so distracted, and really you need tunnel vision. Like what we say to the mentees, like pick one avenue.
I know.
And go forward with that.
And the way we're structured is quite common, isn't it? Where a mentee wants to change strategy.
You want to hop because somebody's had success, and then boom, I want to do that strategy instead now. This looks so much shinier and, like, you know, better.
Yeah.
But you just don't get anywhere like that.
That comes down to the individual, doesn't it? I was very tunnel visioned. I was like, I'm going to give it 100% for 3 months, and if it doesn't work, then I'll think about changing strategy.
Yeah.
But that's in 3 months' time where I might be so focused on this and I can see it working, just not happened yet. But yeah, it is crazy.
And even then, 3 months is such a short period of time. There's like a period of you doing the action to just get comfortable and like familiar with it before you even start getting good enough to get results.
I think from what I see, and you know, I started 5 years ago, is many gurus and coaches back then were selling like dreams, saying you could achieve 10k months in 6 months. And I think that's not the expectation, but people will expect to get the first deal within like 2 months. Go and ask your boss for £1,000 pay rise and you want it in 2 months.
That's it. No chance.
No chance.
You get laughed at the office.
Like do an MVQ level 5, you know,
which will take you like a year or so.
If MVQ level 5 even exists. Just expectations of people starting rent to rent by watching other trainers. It's like, it's 3 months in, why have I not got my deal? It's like, because you're learning a whole new skill set. It's developing into an entrepreneur. It's a test. Like, work hard, you'll be rewarded, as with anything. You know? Try and get a six-pack in 3 months.
Exactly.
No chance.
No.
From an average, you know, let's say no chance. It would have to be pretty extreme.
100%.
You know, fully dedicated, committed every single day to diet, training, cardio, sod cardio. Not for me. But when it comes to rent, it's like a different expectation. It's like moderate effort, where's my deal? That's just set from other trainers, which is a shame. Where I think we're different, we're very realistic.
I was speaking to a guy the other day, and we're trying to find a provider for, they've got like it was an old block of flats in the centre of town. It's getting redeveloped into like 8-bed HMO, 2 self-contained units, and then 6 double beds with like kitchenettes. And they've done multiple of these projects and stuff like that. And this is just us. And I went on a little tour with him to a few of his sites that he's got going on. And he just said something that like really rang true. It's like, I could give you everything I've got now, but you would just lose it straight away. You're not yet the person that you need to become to have the rewards.
Exactly that.
And it's like, it's the same with the mentees. You've got to put in that work. You've got to go through that pain period to become the person to handle the deal, you know, and then to scale and take on more and more deals.
You know Samuel Leeds? So Andrew Tate told Samuel Leeds, if I gave you my body, if you had my body, you'd lose it in 12 months. You'd be back to where you are now in 12 months.
Exactly that, You need to change. You need to go through that period of growth and transformation.
Exactly. Rob Moore basically said, if you become a millionaire, if you win the lottery and you become a millionaire, you better become a millionaire fast. Like, have the mindset of a millionaire. Most lottery winners go broke. Bin man won 9 million. And he's now a bin man again. How do you blow 9 million?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just crazy.
How do you blow that? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend 3 and then I'm gonna look after 6. 6 million is still a hell of a lot of money. How do you blow 9? To the point where you need to be a bin man again. I just think that's crazy.
That is unbelievable.
All right, guys, that's the end. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. We'll get back to you in the next Q&A. All right, so any questions at all from watching this video, leave it in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time.